The star of today's show is a dear friend and athlete. He's an executive in the UAE who has been through an exciting professional and athletic career. Welcome to the show, Abdul Wahab. AW is an entrepreneur, a father of three, and an athlete. This is TC, and I'll be your host. Welcome to the show, AW. We've been talking about having a discussion here at Tools of the Humans for quite some time. I think even before the idea of this show to take place, to took shape. How are you? How's your day so far?
Very well. I'm having a fantastic day. Working from home today, so I can't complain too much.
That's cool. That's cool.
You didn't give me much for my training this morning, so I'm feeling refreshed.
Not too much training. Easy week. We're going to build again. Abdul is an entrepreneur and executive in the UAE who has been through an exciting professional and athletic career. This is surely not my field of expertise, finance and economics, but Abdul's spectrum of career activities have ranged from finance to asset management, sitting on the board of several listed entities. And parallel to his career journey, there is a fitness and sport journey too, with the love for endurance and triathlon. First of all, tell us in 100 words, who is AW?
I can say it in 5 words, but I'll say it in 100 words. So I'm just a very passionate individual who's extremely driven, and I've been driven about most things in my life. As a young person growing up in Dubai, which looked very different to the Dubai everybody sees today. I was brought up mostly either in the beach or in the desert, living a very quiet life, enjoying the heat, enjoying the slow life, enjoying the calmness and nature. And as somebody who was kind of very driven, I did well in school. So my parents sent me to the UK for university, had a great time over there. I spent my entire 20s rushing around Europe, working in a professional services firm. And then I came back to Dubai when I had a family, where my extended family is here, my parents are here and so on. And I had kids and spent the next 10 years working also as a professional with government-related entities, mostly in the finance and development and real estate field. Had a great time. And then about 6-7 years ago, I embarked on my entrepreneurial journey. I had over the years set up several companies, and I really enjoy doing that, including in fitness and F&B, many other sectors as well, technology. And right now, I'm at that stage of life where I'm living my own dream, content in my life. As an athlete, I grew up as a fairly unhealthy child. My parents were not pushing me to do any sports, and sports was not a big deal in Dubai in those days, in the 70s and 80s. So I grew up fairly overweight. I smoked cigarettes from the age of 12 onwards, because that was a cool thing to do in those days. I hope no one tells the authorities or my parents that. Will my parents hear this interview? I hope not. And
maybe later.
Even at this age, you can't tell them. And then I spent, when I went to the UK, I became extremely obese. I hit about 127 kilos was my peak. Kept smoking, kept doing had lots of bad habits. And then at a very young age, in my mid-20s, I had bronchitis and I was coughing up blood, and I woke up. It was my kind of spark moment. You have to do something about your life. And because it's the nature of the individual, I wanted to do something impossible. So I said I would run a marathon. So you can imagine somebody who's 127 kilos heavy saying he will
all
run
of a sudden, without having done any sport for the last few years, right?
25 years. So that was quite a wake-up call for my friends. Laughed, of course, and the more they laughed, the more I did it. It took me 5 years actually to lose the weight and to get the fitness and to shake off all the bad habits. And I did my first marathon in London in 1999. I think it was 99 or 2000. I think it was 99. And from there, I spent 10 years doing marathons, which I enjoyed. When I moved back to Dubai, I found training in the summer too hot, and my children were young, and it was just inconvenient. So that tapered off into half marathons. Still healthy. I never really picked up the really horrible habits, the ups and downs of life, but nothing major. And then I had a bad knee injury in 2013, and I stopped running really, and I started to gain weight, and I was not happy with myself. And someone said, try this triathlon thing. I'm like, triathlon? Yeah, you swim, you bike, and you run. I said, well, I don't know how to swim at all. I was like on doggy paddle, and I've hadn't ridden a bike since I was a teenager, and I couldn't run because I was injured. And because it was impossible, I decided, yes, I'm going to do it. So within 12 weeks of deciding I was going to become a triathlete, I did the Dubai half Ironman. Not very well. I was wearing, those helmets, the helmets with the little thing sticking out for the
Okay,
mountain
like a
bikes.
mountain bike helmet.
Absolutely, and I had a really huge training goggles. I wore a rash vest because I didn't have a triathlon suit, but I did it. And then the journey started, and I fell in love. I even invested in a gym, which we both are partners and co-conspirators in BR Performance in 2017, and the journey has continued since.
Yeah. Sounded at the beginning sounded very smooth. Okay, everything's going well. You become an entrepreneur. You are taking care of yourself, but then you highlighted a couple of points that the low points when you really start. And then you said you did a marathon. You tried to do a marathon 120 something kilos, right? 115 kilos.
Yeah.
How was it? How was it?
I walked.
Okay.
I walked the whole, and I didn't finish it actually. The very first attempt was not a finish. I could barely walk 10 kilometers. So I had to lose, I lost more than 20 kilos before I was actually running.
Able to run.
And then I had to lose further. Yeah, my first marathon, I was 90 kilos. So I had to, where I actually ran it, and I did it in 4 hours, 20, something like that, 4 hours, 30.
I mean, 90 kilo for a big guy like you is not too bad, to be honest. And it's something like, we're talking about figures, but you're a tall guy. And one thing that we can say about you with W is that you have no fear of pain. Really, you love the grind. I mean, I've seen you in action, and is something that you do. But obviously, injuries and stops they happen through life and through an athlete, let's say career, let's say journey. So that in Tools of the Humans, we want to hear how people face challenges in life and which two strategies and tactics they use to overcome them. So for a while, when I started coaching, we were talking about preparing for a full distance triathlon. So, the volume comes up and everything. And for those that don't know what a full Ironman is, it's a 3.8 kilometers swim, 180 kilometers bike, and then a marathon just after. I said before, this is one of those life-changing experiences with daily small challenges to find balance with family, with the kids, with work, and get to the desired performance on race day. So you got pretty annoyed, some pretty annoying injuries during this journey. So we haven't done together one full distance Ironman yet. And because we thought we could work around it, it became kind of a chronic condition. So we have been training with some foot and heel issues. Now we are at a new start, okay? So we are starting all over, especially for the run, for the swim and the bike, because we're there. But for the run, it's something new that we're trying, it's something that we're exploring. What tools do you think you have to face this new challenge? Because we are ground zero for the run right now.
Yeah, I think the number one aspect of it, and this is, I know Tools of the Humans about, human machinations and resilience and how the brain works to overcome things. It's not just necessarily injuries. I apply this in all of my life. And I've had challenges as well. I tell people this rosy story about my career and my family, but nothing is only up. Everything has ups and downs, and some of the downs are very down. I think there's quite a few things that kind of play into it. I think the number one aspect is mental. Was something we've learned over here in Dubai in my time. Well, you learn it living here, but you also learn a lot in the era I was working within the government related entities, where the ruler of Dubai at that time and continues to say, nothing is impossible. Why can't we have it if the rest of the world has it? And this was a speck of sand in the global world at that moment. And look at Dubai 20 years later. So this notion that something is not possible, it doesn't exist in my head. I learned it over the decades. I strongly believe that nothing can stop anyone doing anything. So that's one principle. The other principle is another saying also from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed is when water hits a barrier, it doesn't stop there. It moves left, it moves right, it's ethereal, and goes around it and finds its way back down the stream. And so I think nimble, open-minded, definitely continuously moving forward, looking for ways around it has been another tool that I've worked with around injury and around other aspects of my life. And also, I think this notion of quitting is not an option. We did a challenge recently together when I couldn't run. I told you I wanted to swim 10 kilometers. He said, no, we'll make it 15.
10 kilometers
And
is
of course,
easy,
I was
right?
noticing. Yeah.
I
And
think
then you shouted, I know you tell me I love the grind, but you also shout at me all the time for not holding back and being patient and trusting the process. So that was
yeah,
the
this
last thing I
is
wanted to say. You need the process.
yeah, the process is good. And you know, you're bringing out a very valid point. People we see facing difficulties and then being narrow-minded on the options that they have. As you said, being open-minded and being exposed to multiple options, be adaptable like water. This is a key nowadays for the many challenges that we have because the speed of life, as you said, Dubai 40 years ago, it was slow, it was a piece of sand. And now we see the speed, the pace that is completely different, but it's everywhere. So people sometimes they cannot keep up with the pace of everything that happens in life. You know, you need to take kids to school or the activities you need to move around, and you need to drive a car or take the bus and the train. Everything adds up, and people tend to go into the comfort zone where they get smaller and smaller, and now anything is not possible anymore because you are not exposing yourself. So, I mean, we're not talking about reckless decisions. We're talking about reasoned and options that they are available. I mean, find help from any point of view with the life coaches, with the with the sport coach, with the fitness coach, and this is another aspect that I can see in you. You had the strength to find interior resources, to stand up and say, okay, I'm going to start my journey. But as I said, there are also external resources. Which one are the ones that you think are the most valuable for you right now?
Yeah, that's a very, very valuable thing. In my journey, it's been the ego was a primary driver of success. I think having a strong ego is not, people see it as a negative term, but it's actually a very positive term because it allows you to be determined, and you have to have that self-belief internally that you can do it. I ain't no athlete. If anybody who knows me and sees me, I didn't grow up like this. Didn't grow up like half the people that we train with, but that was never going to stop me. My self-belief was high, but actually the other important aspect is to break down the ego, to accept help, to accept support from outside, from other people. And it's not just about loved ones around you. That's very important because that gives you this emotional backbone and support, which is very critical, but it's also about being open-minded to listening hard. So we talk about our relationship as a coach and an athlete, the two of us. It's not just a program. For me, that's a very critical mental connect. And when we talk about coaching is a very personalized thing. They always say one coach is better than the other. No coach is better than the other, really. There's a technical aspect, which I think, frankly, most are very similar. Some are slightly more talented than the other, but it's the ability to mentally understand your athletes. I do this as a businessman when I'm mentoring people who are more junior than me. I'm not the best mentor in the world, but I fit with certain people. And similarly, I have certain mentees I just don't mentor because I know we don't fit. They have to go somewhere else. So I think coaching is super important, not just from a program perspective, from being open-minded and listening. And when you're not listening, you have to worry. I told you when I did the 15 for the listeners, when I did my 15-kilometer swim challenge, I was supposed to actually be practicing that day. And I decided to be naughty because I'm naughty all the time. And I decided to do all 15 on that day. And the entire time I was worrying about what you, Coach Tomaso, would be saying to me, because you'll be very upset at me, trying to injure myself, trying to hurt myself, trying to overdo myself, not trusting the process, all these things. So this ability to be held accountable to someone you respect and trust is very important. So I think that's one big aspect in terms of seeking support. The other aspects of it have been about paying attention and listening to other people's experiences. So we're all different and we all have different journeys, but something resonates in each and every one of us. So I've been an avid person who's gone through hypnotherapy, for example, for some of the mental issues I've dealt with. I've been through all manner of energy healing to acupuncture to anything to fix my heel, and I still go through it. And being humble, frankly, because you get humbled a lot by the people around you, and from humility you learn a lot. So this is the opposite of what I said in the beginning about having a strong ego to carry on.
Well, I think you're bringing some valid points, especially through your endurance journey, where, as you're saying, there are many things that are working. It's just a matter of creating the right team of people, but also of tools that you need, the pool of tools that you need to progress into this challenge. Let's talk a little bit about the last challenge that you did. Okay, we were injured. You couldn't run. We said about 15 kilometers, and it was funny because I had one of your support team for that practice swim. That was texting me. I think he's gonna go for it. Okay, everybody was like, "Yeah, he's going for it." And I was like, "Okay, let's see how it goes." Because 1 week before the challenge, you are almost ready. We're just fine tuning. It's so I had no doubt that you could do 15K at that point. At the beginning, probably I said it's gonna take some time, but you built to that one. So the last week is just to see, if you could, like you said, I think I can go on. And tell us a little bit about this moment where you decided to go, because this, you're there swimming, you're looking at the wash, almost the 9.5K that I gave you.
Yeah.
Like, well, you know what? I'm going to stick to the plan. No, you're there in pain. You're there in, I mean, like it's still in an environment that is friendly. You're feeling, like embraced by the water, but still it's a long workout. What was your thought process to say, okay, I'm going to go for it?
So actually, I decided to go for it around kilometer 4 or 5. I was halfway through my practice session when I said, you know what, this is the day. And there were a few practical aspects. The weather was perfect. I was fit. I felt good. I had a support crew. There was a kayak, and then there was a swimmer as well with me. And so there was that kind of element of people around. But then something in my heart. It was not even in my mind. I don't think I could say I thought it. Something in my heart told me that today was my day, and automatically I was testing myself, because this is while you're swimming, so it's stroke after stroke, and you're focusing on your strokes as you go up, and you think, don't make decisions that you'll regret later, because I know myself and I know how stubborn I am. Once I make the decision, I'm going to follow through, and I don't want to follow through crawling over it, and I don't want an injury, and all the risk factors, if you like, were running in my head. And the checklists, I'm like, what is wrong today? What could go wrong today? There's no nutrition, the sun is hot. Have I really gotten the fitness? I knew it was the final practice swim, but it's still 50% more than the last one. And before that, I only swam 6.5K. So I jumped from 6.5 kilometers to 15 in a week. And of course, I was trying to think of frankly, most of that was me having conversation with you, the imaginary you. About all these things, and then I had an imagination of you saying, stick to the plan, and I said, well, it wouldn't be me, and you'd be disappointed with me if I stuck to the plan. So I said, I'm going to do it. But honestly, it was really a feeling in my heart that today was the day, so I just went for it. After that, there was no stopping. So when I hit 10K, which was just after the 9.5K practice swim, I was actually tired. But by then the train was on the track and it was not going to stop. And I was going to finish no matter what. And I think the people around me knew that, because the good thing about living in an endurance community and our community is that we all respect each other's resilience and ability to not give up. So everybody actually rallied to support me at that stage, to finish, not to stop.
Tools of the Humans. This is your contemporary podcast where you will learn how humans face challenges. Everybody has a story to tell. Listening is knowledge. Let us know if you're interested in sharing your story or if you know somebody who wants to tell theirs. The show is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Can you relate this sport journey that you are embark on with your life and your professional career? I mean, what challenges have you faced in these three interconnected spheres, the sport, the professional career, life, family? They are all interconnected. And in which way you were able to attack and put in use the tools that you have developed and tested during your life?
That's a really good question, because I think my current athletic career is very much an extension of who I am, not just athletics. I've had numerous challenges. You're aware of some of them. For example, I've got one special needs child, which is going through an extreme special needs situation. And for me, at no point ever did I break down. There's this ability to keep standing and be solution driven and be firm about kind of finding an answer, because there's always an answer to everything. So every time I'm down or something goes wrong, it's a wave, it's a tidal wave. The waves will always come and it'll always go. Will always come. It's a cycle of life. And this knowledge, this deep inside knowledge that things will come out well at the end, and that you will get to the end line. There will be that arch and you will cross it. That belief, if you have that belief in yourself really strongly, the rest kind of rallies around you, partly. So that's one thing that I find applies from athletics to sports. And that's to business. I've had businesses fail, some succeeded, some jobs worked, some jobs didn't. Even if in general they did overall, the downs were very down. Sitting in front of some of the businesses in COVID where they were basically bankrupt and we didn't know how to pay salaries the following month. That's not nice. And in those days, you just stood there and thought, okay, that's done. Let's absorb the situation, analyze the situation, understand the situation. Checklist. It's something I've learned largely from you. And once you've ticked enough, you've isolated the problem and you start to problem solve. It's a very mechanical aspect. So there's an aspect of my life which is very compartmentalized, very mechanical, very checklist driven, and very solution oriented. So it's almost like an engineer. But the other part's intuition. I think you intuitively know before you embark on anything whether it's something you want to do or not, and you want to engage with or not. And I think that intuition comes from experiences, maybe over the years, over the decades, maybe from past lives. Who knows? Some people believe in that. But that's the kind of aspect that I find applies. I think this ability to be very mechanical, trusting a process is very tough. And if you're not an athlete, people maybe not understand this, the listeners, but when you start on a journey and your coach says run 10 minutes, and you think, I've got a marathon to run, buddy, in 5 months' time. What do you mean run 10 minutes? No, you have to trust the process. The process does 10 minutes. And you've got to just take a breath and just do what you're told. And even as an experienced athlete who's been through this 20 times, I've done more than 20 half Ironmans, it's still thinking like, no, I need to do a bit more. So trusting processes has been a tool that I think works in most parts of my life, not just in this. Everything's a journey. Everything's about consistency. Consistency is another element that we talk about as athletes that I think applies in other parts of my life. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep going. It's not just a one-time thing. So yeah, things like that I think are aspects of athletics and endurance performance that I apply across my life. By no means am I the best father, businessman, or athlete, but I definitely always apply these tools to keep pushing myself to getting better.
Yeah, I want to tell you a little story about why we start again, and this is the thing that we have in aviation. Okay, the old airplanes, they have these artificial horizons, no, to stabilize. When you're flying in the weather, you look at the instrument, no. And in the past, the navigation system was something that was always like drifting. So at a certain point, you were flying level, but this horizontal, this artificial horizon was just drifting and was not lined up with the real horizon anymore. So there was like a knob. It was called the pull to cage. Okay, so every now and then we need to pull to cage to get the horizon back in position. That's something that I apply all the times with my athletes when we are in a journey. There is a point where we look, okay, let's pull to cage for a moment, let's reset and start over again. Just to give you an explanation how I see it, in my mind from an aviation point of view. That's explains very well what I think about it. I mean, like from the way I know you, I can say you're really motivated, and not only motivated, you are on purpose. So you have your purpose and motivation. You try every now and then to spike your motivation, because I said many times, motivation is not one shot. Motivation is every day you wake up and say, okay, I need something to boost my motivation. The purpose, I am the purpose because I'm alive. And as you said, like I'm fluid. I'm looking around at options. So I am the purpose, but then we need to motivate ourselves. And then challenges basically are one of the things that we face in life and sport. And that these are the matters that in reality are pushing us to build more motivation, let's say, amplify this motivation and use it for our lifestyle. Now as we said before, we are at a point that we started running again, and it's finally time to run again. So a few months back, you got in contact with the Shane Benzie, author of The Lost Art of Running. You can pass in the contact for the podcast if you want to talk about it. And I missed the opportunity to meet him because I was not in Dubai when he came. But I saw some videos and listening to his approach and words for running in general, but also for movement is mind blowing. How do you find this new path? Because you are following his training, is following his instructions.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because when you spend time with someone, and I learned this from Shane, I learned this from a BR coach called Alessio, who's helped me with my swimming as well. They have one common thread in between them is allowing fluid, natural motion. So Shane's book doesn't say anything you might not read in 100 articles. They're all essentially about the same thing when it comes to movement. But one thing that struck me from the first bit I read of his book and then afterwards meeting him is this notion of we're all an interconnected species wrapped around in fascia, and we are naturally born to move and we're naturally born to run. And it's about rediscovering that innate ability to move in a fluid manner that makes us better. So when he was teaching us to run, he was giving us some instructions, push and pull, feel your fingers, feel this, feel that, do this, do that. But in the end, he says, you cannot call what I teach you drills. They're not drills. I'm just telling you to run. So you're practicing, you're not drilling. So we don't do drills anymore, we're just practicing. So every time I tell him, so what do I do next? I go running. But think about A, B, and C. So when I'm with him, and he's actually very scientific, it's not just as simple as that. So you've got sensors all over you, pointing at the things you don't do right. The leg doesn't lift correctly, it doesn't land correctly, all these kind of mechanical, technical things that you think, okay, these are gimmicky. But at the root of it, he's really giving you very simple instructions to just run naturally. Just be relaxed. Almost what you tell me, but he said it slightly different way. I have the same story with swimming, where with Coach Alessio, he spent a lot of time saying, lift this and put that down and stretch this and stretch that. But his final instructions, once I got to a certain level, was just feel like you're at one with the water. So fluidity of motion is something I've learned from Shane Benzie, as well as Coach Alessio. And I think and the root of it is really that we're all naturally born to move fluidly and in a kind of natural, almost innate way. You shouldn't have to think about it too hard. The difference between, me and an athlete or a professional is beyond nutrition and training and practice, is probably one who can move more naturally than the other. You rarely see a pro or an elite not looking beautiful in anything that they do.
Yeah.
Some don't, and I think you and I know a couple who are just power their way through life. But I think that's something that's been very important. So when he calls it the lost art of running, he's really, really kind of saying it is actually an art, and an art is something that's inside of you.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget your journey. You started that you haven't practiced sports until you were the age of 22. Yeah. So at the point, you lost the art. You know that there are some books, and if you read Born to Run, at the beginning, he's talking about these kids that are running like crazy. You know, and I remember my mother says, "Stop! Don't run too fast because you're gonna fall." Yes, so be it. So these kids, they didn't have their parents running in the book and running around and say, don't run. So they never lost their art of running or movement. So, and then the more you grow up, it's tough because you lose your body awareness. You are doing some movements the way you stand up, you study, you go back to your desk, you study again, and then you just walking, but it's not practicing any sport. You lose body awareness, which is much more difficult in the water. That's what Alessio was saying. Like you need to be fluid because the water is not your element. I mean, we don't spend like 24/7 in the water. So the reality is both of them understand very well that we lose this habit of running or swimming or whatever is our movement. That's really interesting. I mean, like they're coding an approach which should be the one approach that every coach should process for the athletes. I'm gonna remove chains drill from your your training peaks. I'm gonna put
practice.
Chains movement, okay? Chains movement, chains runs.
It's interesting. If I could just add there, when I told you the journey I started with, and I ran many marathons, countless marathons in the 10 years I was running marathons. No one told me to run, I just ran. And you're right, from a standing start of a heavy guy. But today, you roll forward now and it's 2023. My absolute favorite sport, the swimming, bizarrely, for someone who never swam actually until I was 42, I never had I stepped foot in the water, but I've never done more than a doggy paddle in the water. And I find it most natural. They say that, but I actually find it really natural and really nice to feel the glide. I'm nowhere near swimming as beautifully as Alessio, but I aspire one day to at least look vaguely like him when I'm in the water. But I do, on a serious note, I actually find that the most fun part. I find it myself at nature at most there. And strangely, all these years later, having run all these marathons, my probably hardest sport is running at the moment. And it turned out to be a cyclist by brute force. I'm just strong, so I just power through. But it's strange how kind of you roll forward and you think, I just find it so at one with nature when you're out there running or swimming. You really are moving beautifully.
Okay, I'm gonna tell this to Melina because she one of our coaches in BR. She's addicted to swim, so she will like what she's hearing from you. We have a few challenges coming. A race that you're gonna do in a few weeks in Czech Republic, I think, and it's an Olympic distance. I think I know what's boiling in your mind for the next challenge. Just tell us a little bit what you have in mind.
So I have a few things in my head actually, and it's beyond this. These small races are really to keep me engaged at the moment, and they're not really the ultimate objective for me. Racing is about overcoming myself and doing something that I haven't done before. I swam because I couldn't run, and I wanted to do a challenge that I hadn't done or couldn't do before. So I think I've got a few ambitions in life, and one of them is I have done beyond Ironman distances regularly, but don't have a medal. So we've got to get that medal at some point. And I think that'll be my 50th birthday present to myself, I think, next year. And the other thing that I have in the back of my head is an ultra distance swim. So now that we've done 15, I think 30 is achievable. The question is where and which particular event. I'm not sure. You mentioned Melina. Melina did a swim in the Mediterranean for 30 straight kilometers last summer. That sounds interesting. I don't think I could handle the sunburn on my back like I did last time, so we'll have to work around that. The English channel is a classic, so that's something that's certainly in the back of my mind. But yeah, so I've got those two that are definitely up there, and then potentially a Viking Man challenge somewhere I think in the distance in the next 2-3 years. So I have the next half a decade planned for you.
Okay.
At least the challenges are, we need to just find
Yeah,
them.
for sure. I can confirm that anything is possible in this field. And what is your coach gonna say? Trust the process, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's about timing, and it's they're multi. The message to listeners out there talking about, you know, this being a podcast about tools of the humans, is these are multi-year ambitions. They don't come tomorrow and you say you'll swim the channel. It's next year, maybe the year after, actually. And it's a long journey that will have ups and downs. So when you embark on something like this, you're embarking on a process, not just an event. Actually, the event itself is probably highly anticlimactic. Once you have that, you want it, but actually in the end, it's a process that really takes you through a huge series of emotions and ups and downs, and the highs are definitely for me much higher than the lows, which is why we do it, I guess.
You said briefly that you use some, let's say, mental enhancer tools. Do you use meditation and visualization for your targets, for your goals?
Yeah, there are three things I do a lot. One is mindfulness. Mindfulness practice is extremely important, I find, which is the process of detaching yourself from your body and then understanding yourself and being present in that moment. I've never ever trained with music. Not since my first ever coach, Trace Rogers from Growing's Coaching, told me that, you know, you do not use headphones in the race. You do not use headphones in training. I used to run with headphones, of course. And so that's been quite important. So mindfulness is very important. Meditation and hypnotherapy have been a very big aspect of what I do. They help me reset. To your point about sometimes you need to take a break. These points are reset points, but they also help you to visualize and focus. In a discipline in general, and I'll talk about pre-race. So you go through that kind of internal process of overcoming yourself, because half the time it's you just not overcoming yourself. Because it's a very multi-pronged program. Your nutrition, your energy, your field, your avoiding injury, so many things are playing into it that sometimes you limit yourself, and sometimes you just need to go. And finding that balance is hard, and I find meditation and hypnotherapy quite effective for that. And lastly, I rely very heavily pre-race on visualizing the race. This is one of my partner in BR helped me through this the first time, and it was about learning from him this process of going through every single step, imagining yourself in that morning. As an experienced athlete, I know what it feels like, but I have to go through it. Waking up, coming down, eating, walking up to the starting line, the whole procedure up to the race, putting on your swim cap, putting on your goggles, those first very heavy breaths when you jump into the water and you're fighting with 500 people around you in a washing machine. You visualize coming out of the water, you visualize running to the transition. Everything has to be visualized in a lot of detail. It takes a good 2-3 hours before a race. And I do that maybe twice. And I find that really it helps me once you're on the moment. You don't know why it's helping you, but it's actually helping you. And the fourth thing I forgot to mention is breathing. Breathing is extremely important. We sometimes forget to breathe. And this is something I think you and I have spoken about a lot. And I think breathing tends to increase oxygen flow in your body by huge amounts and helps you regulate a lot of your central nervous system and systems that work within you. I did this, not related to athletics, but I did this Wim Hof experience recently, you know, where you sit in the very cold ice bath. So I've done ice baths, obviously we do them regularly for training, but they're normally 8 degrees, 5 degrees. This one's about 1 or 0 or 2 or something like that. And it's about 4 or 5 minutes. And this guy came and he was accredited by someone, and they spent 2 hours teaching us to breathe. I was bored, I have to say. You know, you're sitting there with your eyes closed, breathing in and breathing out in a particular pattern for 2 hours was really dull. But then jumped in the tub and didn't feel anything. It really helps. It really helps kind of clear your head. So I think I use daily breathing exercises before I sleep every night, and I think that helps kind of release toxins, take extra oxygen. I'm not sure what it does, but it works.
I agree totally with all these elements that you have talked about, it's coded now. Everything is coded. In the past, nothing was coded for these things. Now it's coded,
Yeah.
so it's accessible to people, it's accessible to athletes, and they can benefit from it. I mean, and as you said before, as like a coach, you need to find the things that are working for you. You need to adapt with the things that are not working. You know, that's super fine. Abdul, thank you very much for your words. It was a pleasure to confront you.
I have a question.
Ah, you have a question.
Done,
okay.
Coach
We're not done. We are done when you say you're done.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Who's the boss, the athlete or the coach? I wanted to ask you your perspectives on coaching, because obviously I mentioned that was one of the more important parts of kind of how I do this. It's prescient that I'm actually being interviewed by my coach. I think it might be useful for our listeners to hear your perspectives on being an endurance coach and the impact that has on athletes and probably on yourself.
So for me, being a coach comes a long way from my career, because I started being an instructor mid 2005, something like this, at the squadron. So at the beginning, you were not an instructor, but as a senior guy, you were taking your young wing going with you. You would brief him and you would debrief him. So already you were going through the process, okay, briefing, execution, debriefing. So for me, in the last 30 years, I've always been doing through this process. So when I went back to sport and to consistent sport, okay, because I've always been doing sport. But then in 2012, when I moved to Saudi, I had more time and I said, okay, let's put the bits and pieces together. I started structuring myself much more. And then when I wanted to become a coach, a sport coach, I was like, I'm an instructor already. I've seen a spectrum of students who were like, ab initio students that they never flown a plane, to students that they were senior, but they were transitioning from, from another airplane to the airplane that I was teaching. So you had experienced guys, but their perception of things was not the one that they, the reality was different from what they were perceiving. So this is applicable also to sport, because let's say I have, a rower or a golfer, professional that comes into triathlon. He's a sport person, but he's not into the game. So for me, I need to take him from, okay, you have your understanding of things. I need to open your mind to let you see what is the process, and then to see how you can improve and how you can enjoy as well. Because, maybe it's not for everybody, but the overall objective is not to always have pain, but it's also to have fun by achieving. So it was pretty natural for me to say, okay, instructor means coach to me. And I can bring a lot of elements of my professional career into the way I'm coaching, the style that I'm using. I mean, nothing, I don't want to invent anything out of the books. There are books that are explaining, TSS and stress and whatever are the variables that we need, metrics that we need to think about. But the reality is the style that I use probably is different from others, just because I have a completely different background. So I think at a certain point, I was training by myself when I did the first Ironman. It was, let's say, a success because I survived. But then I realized I need a little bit of guidance because it was not my field. And I thought about what was happening to me. People are coming from transport aircraft. Now he's flying a fighter. Yeah, it's not his thing. You need to open his mind, and so I joined this community with this coach, and he put me through the process. I was like, okay, this is what it means. I think I can do it very well because I'm disciplined. I follow my checklist. And then after a few years, I decided, okay, I'm gonna start my coaching career, which is, as you said, it's not only like giving you workouts and giving green or red on the training peaks. It's about talking about things, making plans, and see how life fitting into your sport journey and vice versa, how the sport journey is fitting in life. Yeah, thanks for the question. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah,
okay.
Good to hear the perspective.
Yes. Abdul, thank you very much for your words. Really, it's a pleasure to confront you about life, business, and sport. We've been talking about business a lot in the past, so we'll see how it goes. But we will definitely want to hear from you soon, sharing his knowledge for the listeners, but also for us that we are speaking about things. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Take care.